Welcome back, guys. This is VIN 924-0924. It is a 2016 1H9, which is Nebula Gray Pearl, 1 year only color, with LA30 interior, which is the red interior. It is for sale at a dealer in Princeton, Texas, which is kind of the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area. And it has 35,000 miles on it, but they want $45,000. The kicker is it's a rebuilt title. Immediately, when you talk about rebuilt title cars for GSFs, it's $28,000 to $32,000. That's kind of where the market has spoken, where these cars are. There's a bunch of them out there. People pick them up at Copart. They try to rebuild them and think they're going to sell them for $50,000. And you see a lot of these that people try to list them for $45,000, $50,000, or even $55,000+ for rebuilt title. And that's just, they're going to sit there, or they're going to sell them for where the market has basically said that they are. $28,000, $32,000. That's where this car should be. Don't have to talk too much about the price. Other than $45,000, it's significantly overpriced. And I'll show you what they paid for it and all of the damage, and we'll get into that in a minute. So first off, the production statistics. The Nebula Gray Pearl is a 2016 only color, 1 year only, and they didn't make very many of them. They made 157 of them out of the 2,348 cars, or 64 of them with the red interior. So this car is one of 64. Still on the more common side of combinations, but it is a 1 year only color, so it has that going for it. When we look at the Carfax, AutoCheck, and Epic VIN, Carfax shows it as a 2 or 3 owner car, and when we get into the sales history, I'll explain that. But 1 accident, salvage title, and it shows vandalism, accident, severe to moderate damage. Epic VIN shows it as a 3 owner, 2 accident car, and I think that the 2 accidents are when it was actually reported and then when it was sold at Copart, and I think they've just re-reported it, but I think it's a 1 accident car. And AutoCheck shows it as a 1 owner salvage title car with severe damage. And it's pretty much all around. So if you look at the damage shown. Previous sales, it first went on sale in September of 2016 for $88,000 in Maryland, but it wasn't first titled until July of 2018. So it sat around for almost 2 years before it was actually titled to the first owner. That makes me think it was likely a dealer demo or something like that. It was sold as certified pre-owned to the first owner, and it wasn't a Lexus car either. So that's, things kind of odd there. But April of 2018, it was put on sale for $67,000 with 6,000 miles, again in Maryland. Still for sale in June of 18, and the price dropped to $63,500. So they just, you've heard me talk about where these cars really should have been priced when they were new, and the market had kind of spoken. Mid to upper 60s is where these cars originally should have been sold, and they would have sold so much better. But the dealers wouldn't discount them, so they just sat on dealer lots and just sat and sat and sat forever. So that seems to be the case for this car. So somewhere between, somewhere around 2 years for this one before it actually went to its first owner. And that probably has a lot to do with why the miles are so low too. And then it shows up on Copart in November of 2024. I have a Copart account, so I can see all of that information as well. You can have a free account for Copart, you can register, you can see all the information. When they eventually sell on Copart, then they pull all of that. So if you don't screenshot it or grab it right when it's for sale, you won't have that info. There's several websites overseas that track that. So you can just Google the VIN on this car. You can see all the photos, you can see all the information, you can see what they paid for it, what it sold for at Copart, and so on. Speaking of what they paid for at Copart, the sales price was $24,100. And this car with fees was probably about $26,000. Now it has bullet holes in the side of it, through the windshield, across the hood, the rear quarter panel on the passenger side. So that means it's through the trunk, it's through the door panels, maybe through the seats. There's a lot of questions here. Hopefully nobody was in it when it was shot at. I don't see any signs of anything in there. When I've looking at the pictures, it looks like one of the people that works for this dealer that's selling it, or maybe somebody that bought it at the auction, they had put it up for sale on Facebook Marketplace, and it looks like the original pictures that they shared, you can see right here, it looks like it was still in the body shop getting worked on. Pretty poor pictures. the car was filthy, obviously. Still had flat tires, things like that. And then once it was listed for sale, it looks like they cleaned it up pretty well, but you have to pretty much expect that the doors, if they weren't replaced, then you're looking for body filler, or if it was welded properly or something like that. But the door panels, were they repaired or replaced? They don't have any pictures that kind of support that, so I don't know. But you definitely have to assume the windshield was replaced, the glass on the passenger side was replaced, both windows, the doors, the fender, the hood, the rear quarter panel, like pretty much the majority of the car would have to have been repainted. And so if you were able to get this car not at $45,000, but at like $30,000, then I think, you know, it's still a low mile car if it's properly repaired. It has been in DC, Maryland area its entire life, so you know you're going to have to deal with the salt and things like that, so hopefully underneath isn't too bad. But as I said, I think this car is definitely closer to a $30,000 car. Obviously they're not going to sell it for that because they're in it $26,000 plus shipping to Texas and then all the repairs they have in it, which were definitely not inexpensive. You're talking about the glass and the hood and everything else. Like I think them selling at $45,000 is because they have to. Otherwise they're going to lose money. And so I think they probably overpaid for this car at Copart, and they just saw a 35,000 mile car, but probably didn't realize how expensive parts are and how expensive the repairs are in these cars. So now they're trying to sell it and unload it for 45 grand. Probably going to sit there for sale for a while until they find somebody. That's just my opinion. But as I said, I think this is like a $30,000 car. I'll go ahead and tell you the service history, and then we'll go from there. The very first entry of note starts in 2018. March of 2018, the JLB fuel pump recall was done, and that's about when it came out. So that's the high pressure fuel pumps. Good to see that that's done. About 90% or so of these cars have already had it done. There's still a few hanging out there that haven't, but it's usually the lower mile examples that's the case. September of 2018, the low pressure fuel pump was reprogrammed. That you kind of hear a humming or a buzzing in the back seat. That's definitely what it is, and there's a technical service bulletin for it. Majority of these cars have already had that addressed. If it hasn't been, Lexus will still do it for you, even if it's out of the coverage. They'll just charge you an hour of warranty to fix it. Same service, they did brake pads, wheel repair. There was a hole in the driver's side carpet, and they didn't replace it. They said that they were going to inquire and see if Lexus was going to do anything about it. And it looks like they eventually did goodwill replace the entire carpet in the car in in November of 2018. So good on Lexus, goodwill replacement. Don't know the details, don't know the story, but this car has newer carpet. April of 2019, the grille surround was reported looking tarnished, and the tech noticed that there was some damage on it too, but he tried to clean it really well. You do see that with the plastic on these. The grille surround is a piece of plastic with like a metallic chrome or something that's on top of it, and it shows fingerprints. If you put ceramic coating on it, it will show that. Like it does some weird things, and that's not uncommon to see. You may see some of them that come up for sale, it like has a gold hue to it. And so that's maybe a chemical or something that reacted to a car wash or to road salt or who knows, but that's not uncommon to see on these cars. October of 2019, the KLG technical service bulletin was done. That's the GPS reprogramming. That's where if you're on the highway, it may show you off to the side or vice versa. So that's been addressed. Jumping ahead to August of 2022, all 5 of the carbon fiber trim pieces in the inside for the front were replaced. That's the left and right side of the steering wheel, that's both front doors, and the center console. All 5 of them. That had to be an expensive fix, expensive replacement. If it was out of warranty in 2022, it would have been. It doesn't say they were goodwill replaced, but it's been done. So that's good. And the final service was just October of 2024, just a basic oil change. So I would say fairly well serviced considering the low miles and considering it sat for a while. If you were going to inspect it, I would just say it needs a very thorough body inspection and make sure everything was done. Make sure there's nothing hiding behind the door panels, things like that, just to make sure everything was done. Look in the trunk, make sure there's not still a bullet hole in the trunk from it coming through. You can see the picture there. There is a hole that was in the passenger rear quarter panel. I think as far as GSFs that come along, that there are definitely better options out there, especially at the $45,000 mark. But even at $30,000, this would probably be a good buy, I think, $32,000, but not $45,000. The original wheels are gone as well, so it's got some cheap aftermarket wheels on it. You know, I'm kind of a stickler for OEM type of stuff when it comes to wheels and things like that, but that's me, not you. So if it's something that, if you want to get a low cost of entry into the GSF, and again, you could get this cheap enough, it's an opportunity, but not at $45,000. There are many other GSFs that will come along that are $45,000 with maybe double the mileage that this car has, but with a clean title, no accidents, no stories. And you know, this car has kind of an interesting story with the bullet holes and things like that, but you know, I wouldn't buy it at 45. So that's what I've got for you guys. VIN 924. It's an interesting one. So thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.